This episode of the Polyhedron Collider Cast is sponsored by Kienda. Go to www.kienda.co.uk/Polyhedron Collider for a discount off your first order. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collider Cast, episode 163. I'm Stu Tudor.
Oh, I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
And I'm Rory Summers.
So then, folks, on your board game bingo card for 2025, who had Agricola with zombies?
I didn't have that one.
No?
I thought we'd gone through the zombie kind of phase, because there was that couple of years ago, every video game was coming out, a zombie version of it, and we've gone through that thing with the zombie dice, and we've had various other zombie games running around, so I thought everyone had got over zombies, so no.
I thought what you hit with Zombicide was peak zombie.
Yeah,
pretty
Dead
much.
of Winter and Zombicide, which were about the same time. Well, Awakened Realms just did their year preview. It includes Agricola Dead Harvest, because they're doing the Agricola Special Edition and then an extra version of Agricola which has zombies in it.
How do the zombies feature in Agricola? Having played Agricola, I can't see an opening.
It's true. It's a good question.
I can't answer that question because there's very little detail available so far.
Right.
Just the artwork, which is showing a combine harvester in like a Mad Max kind of world. So it's a combine harvester covered in armor plating and barbed wire, mowing over zombies.
Well, that answers my potential next question, because I was wondering now, are the zombies doing the farming or are you harvesting zombies? Apparently
like
neither, if you're running them over with a combine harvester, unless they sprout out of the ground like sweet corn.
Don't know. I'm utterly baffled and really, I'm intrigued to know what this game's going to be, but
This is creating more questions than it's answering, really.
it really is, isn't it?
Really is. I did see Awakened Realms are also doing a super special edition version of Labyrinth. That
Labyrinth
classic
Chronicles.
Labyrinth Chronicles.
So is this the Labyrinth where you move
The kids game, yeah.
No. Is the one where you move the little wooden slats around with the ball? Or is this the one with the Bowie miniatures?
Neither.
There's two.
No, there's three of them.
That's the other one.
Three then? Which one is it then?
This is the classic kids game, which has got a 3D map on it.
I am not aware of that.
So you've got these little tiles and you have to slide them along, so every turn you push out one column.
That's the one I'm
or
thinking
row.
of. Yes, that one. Yes.
And there's 4 columns and 4 rows you can't move, yeah. But there's going to be a super special edition legacy version of that from Awakened Realms as well. I didn't think that game needed to be made.
Well, this is the world of... Well, if we're going to carry on, let's carry on this theme.
Games that didn't need to be made. Brilliant. Let's go.
Part of this announcement was this War of Mine 2nd Edition.
Oh.
Which, although intriguing, again...
Yeah,
was anyone clamouring for one?
No, that was going to be my question. It's like, is anyone did the first one do that well to demand the second edition? Because, the first one was good, miserable, but good, but the video game's just easier. Because, whilst it said you could, you and I played it, didn't we, Steve?
Yeah, it was a really good game, but you're right, it's the video game, so why not just play the video game?
Exactly, because it's also a lot cheaper.
Yes, it doesn't take you half an hour to set up.
Exactly, and also the multiplayer aspect, and I say that in massive air quotes, was literally just giving your mate the book to read for a while. There were no multiplayer mechanics in it at all. So it's very much a solo game. It was a good solo game, but it was very much a solo game. So, yeah, I don't know.
I remember it did very well. So maybe they thought, well, it's time for an improvement. But yeah.
And you can't fault them for that. But if you've already got... What's going to be the significant differences between Edition 1 and 2nd Edition?
Don't know. Yeah. It says an improved rulebook.
Okay, but that's
a new gameplay, a new insert.
Again,
to be fair, the insert was kind of shit. But that's only because I had the special edition Kickstarter edition, and they had extra stuff in there that didn't really fit in the insert. The base game fit perfectly fine.
But is that really a second edition, or is that just another printing where they've fine-tuned it a bit?
Well, to help you maybe sway that one of the things it says is you can also get all the exclusive content from the original Kickstarter in this next Game Found, suggesting it's all backwards compatible.
I love it when companies make exclusive Kickstarter stuff and then just go, oh, okay, that was a shit idea. Let's sell it now. It makes me feel really valued as a customer when they do that.
I'm not bothered. I don't care.
No, if it's Kickstarter exclusive, it's a Kickstarter exclusive.
It's not mine. It's not special. If I've backed the Kickstarter exclusive, I don't have rights over it. And I mean, if you're going to do something like what with, I can't remember the name the company did with Golem, Century.
Oh, the Golem edition.
Golem edition. Yeah. I can understand that, where they released the Golem edition and said, no, this is a one-off, it's only going to be available at Gen Con, and it was that popular at Gen Con that they went, right, we're now putting it into production, but we're not going to do the other two versions of Century for it, and then 6 months later went, right, here's Golem Eastern Wonders.
Yeah. That was just dick teasing, that was. It really was. And it's not going to be compatible with the other one. You're like, really? Okay. Which, to be fair, I still think is true, but that's the only one promise they've actually kept.
Intriguing.
That's 2 games that no one really asked for.
Well, it's 3. I mean, out of the interest, the other things they announced was an Agricola Special Edition. So Agricola Special Edition in the same way they're doing a Puerto Rico Special Edition, and they did Castles of Burgundy. And let's be fair, me and Andy both own the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition, and it is very, very nice.
When does the Puerto Rico turn up, Steve? Because you've got that, haven't you?
Don't know, but I'm expecting it pretty soon, to be fair. Sometime this year, I would have expected.
Cracking.
Because Awakened Realms are pretty good on their delivery.
They
tend to deliver within about 18 months of their projects going live. So
you say that.
Tend to, I said.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I say that, I mean, I'm not saying they're late. They're not at the moment. Or for Nemesis Retaliation, that seems to be just a really long delivery time. Now they've done Wave 1, in which I received some acrylic tokens for the first 2 games and a couple of packs of cards. So I'm assuming I'm getting everything for that in Wave 2 in about a year's time, which is quite disappointing, but I think that's what I signed up for, so I've only got myself to blame. But it does feel like it's an especially long production cycle for Awakened Realms. I agree with you, Steve. They're usually pretty good for that kind of thing, but this one just feels slightly longer, although it is quite a large project, to be fair to them.
It's one of the biggest games, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's their largest so far. I might be wrong in that. I'm probably making entirely making it up. But the Nemesis series has done very, very well. But then again, they're very good games.
True.
He says that, having not played the second one. On the subject of large things, large projects.
Hello, I'm Rory.
Are we talking about Rory's beard here?
We are talking about Rory's beard here because it couldn't be possibly anything else.
On that, Stephen, just put quickly in. Steve and I went to a little gaming. We were invited to a little gaming thing on Saturday, and we walked through the door, and the chap who came out to meet us was like, I recognise that beard. So he walked in three minutes before I did.
Have any of you watched the American version of Traitors?
No,
I haven't watched the British version of it.
Well, they've got like a creepy extra who's supposed to be like the Scottish groundskeeper, who's basically got Rory's beard. It's even got the white in the same places.
Really?
Wow, are you moonlighting, Summers?
I wish I was moonlighting in America, even if it did mean being in the American Traitors.
Anyway,
you were talking about large things.
I was talking about large projects, and we are well aware of a large project that is coming soon to a games convention centre near you in Arrogate. Look at that.
Arrogate's nowhere near me.
No, it's not near us either, but that doesn't matter. It might be near you.
True.
If you live in Yorkshire, it's quite near you, and that is Airecon. So that is traditionally mid-March, and it is this year as well. 14 to the 17th, I think it is, of March, Thursday to the Sunday, and I will be going. Unfortunately, my colleagues cannot attend for various reasons.
Yeah, annoying.
I know, but I will be there. I've already made arrangements to meet a few of you, which will be good fun. It is here. It's held every year. It's a massive gaming convention. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, if you've been to UK Games Expo, the open gaming area you have at Expo is basically just Airecon. Airecon is always just focused primarily at just going along, playing games, meeting people in the industry and the community, and it's always great fun. It's really well sort of oiled machine these days because Mark's been doing it for a long time. In fact, you and I went to the very first few, didn't we, Steve? I think I was at the second one.
No, we went, me, you and John went to the second Airecon. I say in inverted commas because it was the first one that was open to the public. I think the first Airecon was just done in his like garage kind of thing. So the first official Airecon is the one we went to.
Because this one's Airecon 10, isn't it?
It is. Yes, because we went in 2016. No, 15, 16. Yeah, 16.
Yeah.
Because the first one would have been the year before. But it was in the church hall in Leeds.
It was in a tiny church hall. Basically, the place we went to, me and Rory went to on Saturday, was about the same size as Airecon was the first time we went.
Yeah.
And that place we went to on Saturday happens like once a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, so Airecon is in the Harrogate Convention Centre and has been for many, many years. And it's always a good do, to be fair. I always really do enjoy it. It's massive, and there's like 3 really long halls. I mean, it feels like a sort of underground goth metal club, to be honest, when you walk in there without the music. But it's always great fun. There's loads of people there. There is a demo hall there as well with various exhibitors and stuff. So if you do get the urge to shop and poke around at various folk within the community, that is there too. It tends to be in a different hall, so you need to make the effort to go and say hello. But the usual suspects are always there. People like Hachette and stuff. So you'll probably see Flavian and stuff running around. Big Davey T often makes an appearance there as well. So if he's demoing a new game this year, he might well be there. I don't know if he's going to be, but he has been for the last couple of times I've been, which has been nice to sort of see what he's been working on. And there are other sort of celebrities and Instagrammers, influencers, I believe they're called, not us. People far more important than we are often there as well. So if you can bag some time with them, it's always nice to see. So do recommend going if you haven't got if you haven't got a ticket yet. I realise it's short notice, but it's always fun, and and you might get to meet me, which is even better.
Just ask for Becky.
Shush you.
When I was editing the clips for that, for the reels on the socials, I listened to that one over and over again just because it made me giggle so much.
Well, I'm glad my accent makes you laugh.
Oh, right, let's drop out some games, gents.
We've got lots to talk about tonight.
We have. Should we start off with a bit of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence? Because God knows there's no intelligence down here.
Yeah, let's talk about SETI from CGE.
Yes. So, SETI from Czech Games Edition is a game, funnily enough, about searching for extraterrestrial life. And it's based around 3 main things that you're going to do, which is effectively use radio telescopes to search the skies for signals, send probes and satellites and landers to various planets in our solar system to look for physical samples of aliens, and then number crunch these samples in your supercomputer to find out more information. That's like the key 3 points to this game. However, when you first look at this game, the first thing that's going to catch your eye is the moving of your probes and landers around, because it has this rather amazing rotating board system where 3 sections of the board all rotate separately. And as you play the game, this represents, quite crudely in a way, the way in which the solar system will move, and so planets that were close together will move further apart as things happen. So you've got this really cool little plastic sun in the middle, which I'm still tempted to try and find an LED to put inside it.
Someone
candlelight.
Needs to do that.
Yeah, because it is semi-transparent, so it's pretty cool. And then you've got Earth and I think it's Earth and Mercury on the centre one, and as you go out further out to planets, Venus on there as well. Mm. So the game runs around several simple actions that you can do to do these things. So launch the probe, which is the most fun. I'm going to say that right from the beginning. It's the most fun thing to do is get a probe out and try and hop it along. And what you'll do is you'll also generate publicity, which is a little resource you can spend to get bonuses. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, you're trying to get one of these 3 samples: the physical sample, the radio sample, or this computer sample. And with these, you'll claim them on the board. Each one's worth points, so that's one of the main ways you're going to get points. But the second clever thing after the rotating planets is there are 2 alien species in the game, and these alien species are random every time you play. And once one of each sample has been revealed for each alien, the alien is revealed and a whole bunch of new game mechanics get added. They're not usually complex, they do vary from alien to alien, but they have little things that mix up the game a little bit and give you extra things to do. The other thing I suppose you should mention is this is one of those games with a gigantic deck of cards. It's an absolutely massive stack of cards, which give you loads of extra actions, but also give you options for end-game scoring, mid-game scoring, or you can just discard the cards for an immediate bonus. So you've got lots of options of how to use these things during your turn. The only thing I didn't mention scanning in computers, I'll do it in a little bit more detail. So scanning is you pick an area, especially in area majority games. When you scan a sector, you'll place one of your tokens in the sector and take a data point out, which is a little clear plastic piece. Then when that is full, there's an area majority system which can give you a sample, give you one of these samples you score. But the data points that you collect then fill in your computer, and then once you've filled in your computer, you run it as an action and get bonuses. One of the things about this game is it feels more difficult, I think, than it actually is. Because you'll start the game and you'll go, right, I'm going to launch probe, I'm going to scan, I'm going to run my computer, and realise you don't have the money and power to do all those things. Mm-hmm. And you spend the first few turns going, this game's really hard, how am I supposed to do anything? Oh, woe is me. And I don't know what it is about everyone, but there's a point about a third of the way through where you just kind of accept it and just get on with it. And it reveals itself properly then, the game.
Yeah. Because it's an interesting one. How I think it's difficult to classify this game because what are the kind of core mechanics of it in a normal kind of
action selection
board gaming parlance, but actions, but
it's not.
I suppose
it is. You select an action and you do it.
Yeah, and then you get the aliens, which change the game, and it becomes a pick up and deliver for a while.
And you're playing cards.
It's a smorgasbord of game mechanics.
I should actually say, Andy's frowning at that point because Andy didn't see that alien. So we've all played it. All 4 of us have played this game. So the alien that turned up when Sid played it was quite literally pick up and deliver. You had to send a probe out to space, grab the sample, and bring it back to Earth. Whereas
There was also what was the other one that had you had to bet on conditions for the end of the game.
There was weird stuff going on.
That was the other one.
Really cool.
Yeah, and then there was the one which was you found an alien, you could communicate with them, but it took 15 years to get communication, so you get a bonus, but you wouldn't get it until 10 once you'd scored a certain amount of victory points. And then there was another one which you found monoliths in the system, and you had to try and align the scanners to get the information from the monoliths.
They're all really different, and they all add really interesting twists on the game, and the combination of them as well obviously interacts. But you're absolutely right though. The start of that game, you're like, I've got so much to do and so little resource, and you kind of have to eke out your turn. Because you don't really want to be the first one to pass, although there are bonuses, you get first dibs on the cards from the little trading row. You get first, but you don't really want to be the first one to pass and just be sat there twiddling your thumbs. So you need to eke out your turn, and obviously you're playing your cards and stuff. It's such a wonderful, clever game, but you're right. I think it is a slow burn as well. It's got a slow trajectory into excitement. It builds and builds and builds, and then you get to that third of the way through, and then you're just flying when you score 25 points before everyone else has got off the 10-point mark.
Well, you did quite well the second time played.
I did very well, Sid.
You did.
Now, see, this game, I've played it twice. Right? First was a little demo game, and then we played it properly. And I've enjoyed both games. But both games have also frustrated me. And they've frustrated me for the same reason. You boys have both touched on it already. And that is, I think there's too much going on all at once. and I struggle to keep on top of all those different things at the same time. I'm doing a little bit of each one.
Yeah.
So I tend to gravitate towards one.
Yes.
And that means my game, for me, is relatively interesting. But I also know that it can change the game for everyone else at the table. Because, if I stop scanning, I just go, no, I'm binning scanning off in this game. It changes the game. I think it changed the game very significantly for Steve when I played with you. Because I just binned off that whole mechanic completely. And you had some end game conditions which relied on it.
Now, my opinion has changed a little bit as we've been playing. So when I played with you, Sid, I was very much of the view that to play the game properly, you're supposed to do a little bit of everything, and the game fits neatly together if everyone does a little bit of everything. And I do believe that's partially true.
Okay.
But I also think, because we played it 4-player since, and by the way, I think this is a 4-player game. It works at 3-player.
Okay.
It just about works at 2. At 4-player is where it feels like everything's been designed and balanced for 4 players. There's enough options there that you can do the thing you want to do. And I noticed, for instance, how much space there was on the planets. Like everyone was sending probes out and everyone was putting satellites and landers in. And the moons were getting a bit busy because everyone got greedy and saw the moons were worth a lot of points, which is worth the points. Yeah, which is not a bad thing. But I've seen pictures of people playing this online and they've got 3 satellites above every planet. And I think what the game does is the game has got enough room that everyone can do what they want, but there is rewards for being a bit more balanced. Like, if everyone scans the sky, then everyone's going to get loads of bonuses quite early on, but a lot of those planets you scan don't get you the sample you need on the second round. It's only on the first round of the scans. The other way in which the game really self-levels itself here is that you've got these 3 different samples which you can only get from doing these 3 separate actions, and the spaces for these are limited. So if everyone is going hell for leather on trying to get samples from planets and sending their probes out, in a 4-player game, the one person who scans the sky is going to get his pick at the best spots. And I do think it's another thing to help this game is it's possible to pivot because, you can upgrade your technology to make it better to do things, but even somebody who's upgraded, you're never down in the doldrums. You're never, the upgrades are quite small. They're quite small upgrades. They're not like a major upheaval. So if you suddenly find out, all the sample planets points are done, I can then go scanning and still have got the opportunity to get points and grab them. You can pivot at planes where you want. I think it's a really clever design in that regard.
I think you're right there, Steve, that the upgrades especially they're not major, massive improvements to your game. What they actually do is they open up more of the game. So, for example, scanning one allows you to scan slightly further apart, or the computer one allows you, it gets you extra bonuses.
You get loads of pickups, don't you, with the computer?
Yeah. And the kind of the launching the probe one allows you to land on moons or to orbit planets slightly quickly, which makes it slightly more attractive to do. So, you get to physically, go to more of the game. So I think the upgrades they're all enticing because they all allow you to basically literally see more of the game, which is good because you're essentially penned into arsing around on Earth to scan the only thing that Earth can see, or your little satellite pootles around Earth until it f***s off into the middle of the solar system because there's nowhere else for it to land, or you've got to get a shitload of data back. You've got to upgrade your supercomputer with the latest graphics card in order to play Fortnite or whatever on it. It's always fun. So I really, and of course each upgrade gives you a little bit of a benefit when you get it anyway. But there's an incentive to go for some of these upgrades quicker than everybody else because there's a 2-point bonus for the first person who gets it, which then by default means that everyone plays a slightly different game because everyone wants to go for the 2 points, which means you get a different upgrade to everybody else, which
those
means
2 points are really important, aren't they?
They are. They absolutely are.
The points can be really close. But I think you're absolutely right, Steve, in that the game does self-level and you've got this great ability to pivot. So, but I also kind of agree with you, Sid, is that you can go down, I want to go down this route in the game, and But when you work out that that's not going well for you, or when somebody else picks up a load of points doing something else, up until the very late stages of the game, you can pivot and go, I've now got to do this to claw back as many points as possible. It takes, when someone starts driving the game points, you have got those options to go, right, what am I? I'm on disaster recovery. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you'll find that most of the cards in your hand that you did have a plan to go and do this with, you can now just go do that. And you can move. I think it's a really clever game. I think it's a really well balanced, and it is. I think it's a brilliant 4-player game.
No, I agree. I mean, one thing I've been able to, I think I said part of the way through the game, the one thing you need to learn is you don't fall in love with your cards. Because they've all got really good abilities on them, but some of them are fairly useless depending on what you're doing. So you've got to just burn them for the small benefit you get in the top corner, and then get something else later that'll allow you to do something else. So it is quite good. There are a couple of cards that link to each other, but I think betting on that is not really worth it, because the deck's so large and it's so large, so
varied, and it's all unique, isn't it?
But you're not going to chain cards together.
This is the game. I think you coined the term a few episodes ago now, Steve, that this was the Rory mechanic blindness.
It was, yeah.
I ignored one part of the game to my massive detriment.
You completely ignored scanning, which means you weren't getting any data points to run your computer. So you weren't just ignoring one mechanic, you were effectively ignoring two.
Yeah. You had to do that action. Yes. That's where, Sid is right. You've got to do a little bit of everything.
Yes, but I also ignored scanning, and it didn't hurt me.
Yeah.
So this is my whole thing about this. Is what I think.
I agree. I made this point when we played that last game. I've played it since, Sid, and I now agree with you. I think this game is clever and it does allow you to do everything. I don't think it forces you down the route. I think the only issue is because scanning is an area majority mini game effectively. If you're just doing scanning, you've got to do a bit more work to get the points out of it because no one else is contributing.
And I think that I don't love this game. I don't think I enjoy it as much as you guys do. I think it's because I feel that the few games I've played of it, I felt like I'm playing on my own against myself. I feel like everybody's playing a different game on the table. And
that's a good.
And I didn't
interesting
feel
way of looking at it.
I didn't feel like you guys were getting in my way, or I wasn't feeling like I was taking advantage of some of the moves that you or mistakes that you guys made. I didn't feel like there was a huge amount of interaction between us as players on the table.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Last time I played with Steve and Andy, I didn't feel like they got in my way at all. Mainly because I just won, because I won really early in the game and there were no competition.
That's not entirely true, Rory. I did catch you about 3/4 of the way through the game. But then I had no end of game scoring conditions and you pumped me. So, but yeah, landing on moons, it turns out, is quite lucrative.
Well, that's what I did. I pretty much binned all other parts of the game and just chased moons. I completely abandoned scanning and went, nah, sod this. There's high value points on the board there. I'm chasing those.
That's what I did and got pumped.
I won.
Yeah, but it really varies, and it does. The way the game plays changes depending on who else is around the table. Like say, if people collaborate on the scanning, if lots of people go for it, it can generate quite a bit of points and generates like that. It's a mini game. And that mini game spins up quite nicely. But if you're the only one doing it, it makes it a lot of hard work for you, and everybody else is doing more interesting, or they're doing different things.
Yeah, and that's my main criticism about the way the game is balanced for multiple players, in that scanning isn't affected. Other things are affected, which is basically just it forces out the aliens a bit quicker if you're playing at lower players, so that the aliens do come out.
Yeah, you want less of those mini gems in the racks, don't you, on a 3-player game? Just to it's
feels
easy
like it
to
needs
pop.
something out there to get the But I don't disagree with you, Sid. You're right. It is a game largely in which you're doing your own thing, and people don't generally get in the way. However, every time I spun the planets, Andy swore.
Oh yeah, there was plenty of that.
Yeah, because you can guarantee that if you've meticulously planned out your route and then someone does an action which makes the planet spin and all of a sudden Jupiter's at the complete opposite corner of the board to what you wanted, it's like...
Yes, Mr. Tudor.
Yeah, there's a lot to take that,
the way
and
we
suddenly a
played
nice
the game?
straight route through the game has been destroyed by the fact that you're now going to go the long way around. So there's a lot of take that in it, which I suppose is the interaction-y piece. So that undermines my own argument, but
it's not a major thing, and I don't think it's a take that element, Sid. It's just you've got to be prepared that this is going to happen at some point.
Oh, yeah.
but you can... Yeah, I see what you mean, yeah.
Overall, I really enjoy this game, and I think this is a type of game that's going to return to the table time and time again. It's almost got like this timelessness to it. I think it's one that I'm going to continue to enjoy for the next several years.
It's definitely got a lot of replayability with the very, very different alien races out there. I know I've only played it with the two different ones, but they were very, very different. And obviously with the other ones as well. It'd be nice to see how the game changes when you've got those different alien mechanics messing around. Because one of the ones we had actually physically changed the scanning mechanic. You know, you could end up and you could land a probe onto this little asteroid.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's an incentive there to launch probes or to do some more scanning or to do whatever it is. So each alien race will affect at least one of the mechanics. So that's quite good. I definitely feel that it's more interesting than Arnag.
Yeah, it's a different beast, isn't it?
Oh, it totally is, yeah. I wouldn't say it's any more complicated than Arnag, but I think it's a lot more interesting.
It's more complicated than Arnak.
Honestly, I don't think
definitely
it
is.
Not really.
It's weird. Do you know, like when we said at the beginning, we can't work out what mechanic, you can't pin the mechanic to this game. I think that's what makes it slightly complicated. In that
you can't put it on a shelf. And
you can't say it's worker placement, or you can't say it's card play. It's a bit of everything, and I think that's what makes it complicated. Just because the wealth of options you've got on your turn and the way those actions work. I'm really interested. Well, I mean, CGE are one of these companies that often do expansions, so I'm expecting more aliens.
Their products, aren't they? So yeah, they're going to. I'm hoping for an expansion this year.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised.
And that's going to be, we get that expansion, and then it comes back to the table for at least as many plays as there are new aliens.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was SETI, or Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, from Czech Games Edition, CGE. I mean, a couple of minor issues, but generally I think we really liked that.
Highly rated game.
Yeah, worth the play. I enjoyed it. Really good.
Work your magic then, Steve.
Oh my God! Right. So, brace yourselves. This one's going to be a bumpy ride. This one. One of the key mechanics of SETI is running your computer. And as Andy said, you can get a decent graphics card on it, and maybe you might then be able to play Slay the Spire on it, which is a video game.
That's not too
which
bad,
has been
actually.
made into a board game.
It's not too bad.
Wow.
And we have played that board game.
We have played that board game.
So, for those that don't know, Slay the Spire is a quite low-budget indie-style game. It's a roguelike, which basically means every time you play the game, it's slightly different, in which you take a character, and it's called Slay the Spire because you're attacking all the monsters in this spire and making your way to the top. But us board gamers will get onto it straight away because it is a deck builder. It's a game in which you fight baddies and you'll have a deck of cards. You have cards in your hand, you play the cards, do attacks and defense, and in between fights, you buy more cards to add to your deck. So, pretty standard deck builder. So, it's not hard work to turn that into a board game. And what they've basically done is they've added multiplayer mechanics. So it's the same game, everything works exactly the same way, even most of the attacks, most of the cards you see are the same, the characters are the same, but you can play with up to 4 players. And what it does is basically puts rather than having the baddies just generally on screen and everyone attacks you and you attack everyone, is it puts it in 4 rows, one for each player, and your row attacks you, but you can attack anyone that's on the board. It even puts the map out. So the way in which Slay the Spire works, it gives you a branching map which gets you to the very top of the tower, where you have to fight the main boss. And there's a nice little randomise thing where you put tokens down to randomise the route. And then everything else is basically baked into the game with cards. So all the baddies that are in the video game turn up in the board game. And it's... I'd like to praise it for being a very good adaptation of the video game. But it was already a board game to begin with in video game form. So it's kind of a home run in the American terms. But yeah, it plays really well, actually. And what they've done with the multiplayer, because you've got to work as a team, try and stop your friend. If one character dies, it's game over. So you've got to make sure that no one dies. So the way the multiplayer works, I think, is really quite good. You need to keep an eye on what everyone's doing. There's how many? Is there 4 characters?
Four characters in the base game, yeah.
2 of which are really simple, 2 of which are rather complex. So you can start with a simple character, or have the most experienced person have the more complex characters. And then as you play, you upgrade your deck. So you either add more cards to your deck to give you more options, or you upgrade it. And the way you upgrade the card is the game has to be sleeved, and you'll take the card out, flip it around, and put it back in the sleeve.
Because the reverse of the card is just a slightly more powerful version of the face value.
That must be a bitch to tear down and set up.
Not as much as you first think. However, me and Rory have a lot of complaints about this game, right? So we played it with our friend Adam, and Adam has played the video game loads. So he absolutely loved it, and he was much more familiar with the video game. I've played the video game quite a lot, but it's been a while since I've played it.
And I've never played the video game at all.
So Adam just got everything on instinct. Me, I was getting very frustrated at the beginning of the game because the rulebook doesn't explain all the rules.
That is a disadvantage.
And the cards I designed to mimic exactly what you see in the video game.
Which is great.
But it could do with an icon or 2 at the bottom to help you sort them out when you start the game, because your starter deck has got a grey border. And I went, well, those are my starter cards. And Adam was like, no, not that grey border, that grey border.
What?
Oh, you mean the outer grey border, not the inner grey border?
What?
Yes. Oh, so that grey border are basic cards, those grey border is your starter cards. So I said, someone who knows the video game doesn't really need to learn the rules because they know what's happening. Me and Rory, who've forgotten or not played the video game, went, well, how does the strength token work? Well, it just goes on and adds +1 strength. But there's no rule that says you add a strength token at any point. It's just implied that you'd know that. We got the icon reference card. So where's that icon? It's not on there. Well, why isn't it on there? Well, it's because it's a card, not a token.
Because it's a card, not a token, and it has the rules for the icon on the card. But why isn't the icon on the icon reference sheet? There's so many, and I know it sounds petty, but there's so many little things where you, as a board gamer, like an almost exclusive board game, where you go to get the information, and the information is just not there. For me, that made this game actually had quite a high barrier of entry. Like every time I tried to do something, this is a deck builder. It is just a deck builder. I know how to play deck builders. There isn't really anything new under the sun with a deck builder, except unless you hide half of the information. Now I don't know what I'm doing. It was really, there were points in the game that I found very frustrating. And I'm going to have to disagree with Steve.
What's that?
Because I found this to not be a very good co-op game.
You don't think?
No, because none of the characters really cooperate with one another in a meaningful way until Act 2. Because you play a game over 3 acts, kind of beginning, medium, and difficult. And when you start the game with your basic deck, there's no synergy. There's nothing. No characters really interact with each other.
Yeah, none of the starter cards affect another player.
Which means
So
I'm doing my stuff and you're doing yours. I mean, yeah, you might be able to attack my enemy, which is great and all, but really there's no synergy. And I think when that happens much later in the game, that's where it's a bit more fun. That's when I'm going, Steve, have you got Bash? Because if you've got Bash, I've got a great card to play. Or if you've got Poison, can you do this? Can anybody do this? But it takes about an hour and a half before anyone's having cooperative discussions at the table.
In a cooperative
Holy
game.
shit. Hour and a half before you get to that. So how long does this thing last?
I reckon you can play all 3 acts in about 3 hours if you're being quick with the setup. 4 from scratch.
Wow.
So yeah, an hour per act. Yeah.
So basically,
It's
you don't
about an
get
hour per act.
you have to get halfway through the bloody game before it starts getting interesting. That's tantamount to playing a Final Fantasy game.
Well, it's obviously based on Japanese style RPG fight mechanics. You can tell that. I would say we didn't notice that, me and Rory, until we died. So we went through it and played the game, and we were enjoying it, and we finished Act 1. And we went, right, next week, we're going to do Act 2 and Act 3 in one evening, because we played for about 3 hours. So we said, we can easily set it up in Act 2 and Act 3. About 3/4 way for Act 2, we died. So we said, right, let's set it up and start again. And when we set up and had our starting hand again, we went, well, this is boring, isn't it? I can attack for 1, I'll block 1. What are you doing? Rory?
I'll attack for 2 and block for 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had to go through several fights, bearing in mind that after each fight, only 1 card's been added into your deck. Unlike a normal deck builder, when basically you're adding a card to your deck every few seconds, here you're adding a card to your deck every 10, 15 minutes kind of thing.
1 card.
Oh, Jesus.
So what happened was that the point where it became interesting was a little bit earlier than halfway through Act 2. It was interesting towards the end of the first act. But I only noticed this when we did this the second time, that it took too long to get interested.
Space syndrome.
Yeah.
So is this one of those games where you play it once and you've had enough? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Or not?
Yes.
No, it
Certainly sounds like it. I've had enough just listening to it. Christ.
I mean, I'm just trying to engage to feel part of the crew.
So do you look like you need a slap
honest.
to wake up, mate?
It's obviously based on the video game, which is the solo experience. Because it's not a multiplayer video game, and what they've done is they've mimicked this video game as much as possible in board game form, adding a splash of multiplayer mechanics. We mentioned this War of Mine earlier.
I was about to ask. It does sound
it's a very similar
to that
problem.
idea, yeah.
Now, and what happens is a few of the cards, instead of saying add 2 defense, now say add 2 defense to any player, but they're rare. Then what the game does is at the back of the game there are unlocks. So once you've completed the game with the character, you've got an unlock, and it tells you to go into a pouch and open this, which gives you something extra. So it's got that thing of wanting you to play several times to unlock the extra content.
But not interesting enough that you'd want to.
Well, as I said, the problem is it was interesting, just it took an hour to get interesting.
It's even got an achievements trophy.
It does.
Bloody mechanic.
No.
Why?
Yes.
Why? That's what I'm going to ask you. Why bother with this in board game form, which sounds like a whole lot of administration and faff, when you could play it as a video game?
Oh, Sid, so we died. We played it last night and we died. And I was like, okay, so how do we work out what our deck was at the beginning of Act 2? Do we just carry on? And Steve and Adam were like, no, you have to reset your deck. I went, yes, but how do I know what I've added to my deck this round? No, Rory, you need to reset your deck to the beginning. I was like, you what? I've got to what? And then they start doing it, and I'm like, you're joking? I felt like crying. And
Looks like you relive the trauma right now, mate.
It's like to check every card, put it back in its deck, flip it all, and then to do all of that, go back. All right, we've got to do the starting fight again, and I've got only these really shit, boring cards that don't do anything interesting. They don't interact with any of the players. Whoop-de-doo.
Which was weird because he was enjoying it up to that point.
That's it. When we,
Well, sounds
when we
like it,
finished that,
yeah. He sounds really
But I think
enthusiastic
He
about
was.
his
That's it.
experience.
He was, and you could see how everything just came crashing down in Rory's
down like a
eyes.
tower of cards. Like when we started playing the game first off, again, that barrier of entry pissed me off. It just really pissed me off. But by the end of the game, I was like, I've actually built a pretty cool deck here. This is kind of cool. I've got some cool treasure, and I've got some cool potions, and I've got this cool deck, and my deck works quite well with Steve, so that's going to be quite fun next time we play. And it took me until the end of the first game. It took me an hour and a half to change my mind and go, this is actually quite cool. And then to have everything that was good about the game ripped away from me quite violently and told I've got to go back to the very basic vanilla edition and start again. I was like, this, if it didn't cost so much, I'd throw it away.
So the question is, of course, how much is the board game and how much is the video game?
The board game is about 80 quid. And I think, and consider it is just cards.
Did you just say 80 quid?
80 quid.
It's got a couple of minutes.
It's got the four
some
minis,
tokens
yeah,
in
some
it. It's got some miniatures in it, but there are a lot of cards.
There are a lot of
I will
cards,
give it
and there
that.
are all the sleeves, but I do think a lot of that price tag is the IP.
But how much is a video game? 15 quid?
I don't think it's even that much now.
There
It's
you
quite an
go.
old video game.
Yeah, there you go. Which one would you rather play? The one that
Well, it
actually
sounds like
teaches you all
neither,
the rules
frankly.
and costs a lot less, or the one that costs 80 quid that you don't know what you're doing?
Which I think makes this a really interesting question, I think, for Slay the Spire, the board game, is who is this game for? Because if you play the video game and you enjoy the video game, you're kind of watering down that experience to play it at 4 players, and I don't think the co-op stuff really adds anything that playing the computer game won't.
Especially for 80 quid.
And if you are a board gamer who just likes deck builders or just wants to try a new board game, I think this game has a lot of frustrations, and it has a high price tag for those frustrations, even though parts of it are cool. And we will play it again because I almost want to see it finished. I want to see the arc, all 3 acts played. But it's going to feel like homework getting that to the table again. And God forbid I die. If any player dies, if I have to restart that game again, I'll flip my lid.
So it's mixed.
By the way,
results here.
just an update on the price.
Okay.
According to Travelling Man, which currently have it in stock, the RRP is £115.
Look, let's just move on to the next game. Because we're going to say
and we
something
should-
rude and
well-
offensive in a minute, aren't we?
Good grief!
Yeah, we should actually say this was a review copy from our show sponsor, Kienda.
Yep.
But 115 quid. I can buy a copy of Blood on the Clock Tower for that, or almost that.
Interestingly, Kienda reckons it's got 107 quid RRP. So one of them's...
Still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it.
Adam loved it.
Maybe that's who it's
Adam
for.
loved it. And that's,
Yeah.
Maybe if you've got
It's for
4
Adam.
people that love the video game and just want to do something together, they probably get loads of rocks off on it.
Do you know what?
Maybe.
You might be right there.
Maybe.
Split the cost as well.
I think it's one of those games which is very much Kickstarter-fied, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, Foundations of Rome we talked about last week. That's very Kickstarterified.
Yeah. By the way, it's got an RRP of 20 quid on Steam, but it's currently £6.70.
So spend 6 quid and buy the video game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right then, Rory.
Right.
Take us from our misery.
From climbing to the top of the spire to finding the best perch. No, to get into the top of the tree.
Oh, God.
Top of the fountain.
The reason I'm shaking my head is
Yeah.
it because it feels like you and Steve have spent most of last night's gaming session working these links out. Because I swear you're doing a 1-2 thing here, right?
What's it?
I'd tell you, said these weren't workshopped well. They didn't go very down well with audience.
I was then going to
participation.
comment on the quality of your workshopping.
Do we need a focus group?
To be honest, Sid, I think the quality of their work speaks for itself.
What? I'm not going to offend the gaffer. I'm going to keep quiet. Now, Perch, Rory, tell us all about Perch.
Right, so Perch is a very cutesy-looking area-controlled game where you are a flock of birds of a particular colour and you are looking for the best place to rest and nest and perch, as the game title might imply, in a neighbourhood. And you've got various different tiles. Depending on the number of players, you'll put out more tiles in different columns. But you've got some basic tiles, which are just back gardens or a field, perhaps. You've got some special tiles, which might give you some bonuses, the old oak or the old church tower. And then you've got some creature tiles, which have maybe an owl or a fox or a scarecrow. I know a scarecrow isn't technically a creature, but just roll with me, okay? And you are going to send your birds out and you're going to take control over these areas and you're going to score some points. Now, the first interesting thing about the way you score these points is every tile will score you some points, but not necessarily for whoever has the most birds there. So the highest won't always get the highest amount of points. Sometimes the lowest number of birds on the tile will actually win the most points.
Oh.
Which brings me to the second interesting thing about this game is that in your turn, you're not always going to be putting out only your birds. So you'll take 2 of your own little plastic birdies, but then you'll reach into the little perch bag and draw out 2 more, because every round 2 get put in for every player. So in your turn, Andy, you might pull out 2 of your blue birds, 1 of my green ones, and 1 of Steve's yellow ones. So now in your turn, you've got to place all 4 birds. You'll do 1 and then we'll cycle around the table. So you're going to be using your opponent's birds to manipulate where they are, which allows you to pip them up when really they want to be the lowest.
Sure. So that's kind of vaguely similar in mechanic to something like Courtesans or Biblios, in that you're forced to play something in front of someone else you might not want to, because you're kind of helping them out. If you, it's a loose, it's a tenuous link. I appreciate.
Do you know? But that,
you can see what I mean.
Courtesans is a good example. Actually, yeah, I'm going to play these birds. I'm going to play Sid's bird into this tile because actually, if he gets to the highest, he's already there, but he's only going to get 1 point. But now because I'm the lowest, I'm going to get 3.
You're trying to minimise your opponent's benefits and maximise your own until they come along and do the same thing to you.
And then another interesting thing in this game is the other creatures. So depending on the player count, there'll be more creatures. But if you've got the majority on one of these creature tiles, you'll get this really cool, very pretty little acrylic standee of that creature. And you'll get the creature ability. So then once per round, you can activate that creature, which will go off and kill some bodies or some birds around. And they each have different movement rules and they each have different kind of kill rules as well. And those can be really fun to interact with. And then when you kill them, you send them off to what is the fountain, which is a little pyramid of points. So you want to be really clever of going, well, I'm going to kill 3 birds this round. I'll kill 1 of Andy's, 1 of Sid's, and put them at the lowest points so that then I've got the pyramid so I can go above them so I can score 2 points. And then again, you're going to build up and up and up to get the most points. It plays really, really quickly. It's only about a 45-minute game. It goes up to 5 players, and it is surprisingly nasty, this game. It is surprisingly mean, but not in a take that way, because every player has to play your opponent's birds. You have to manipulate that central board with your opponent's birds, and everybody's doing it, and everybody's doing it fairly evenly as well.
It's a fantastic optimization game, this.
Really
I
is.
think Andy touched on it perfectly earlier, is you're trying to maximize your own points with your own birds and minimize somebody else's with their birds. And I love that kind of element of the game, because it meant you were engaged with the game and actually watching what other people are doing, because it really mattered. If you weren't paying attention or thinking about what birds people had in front of them and how they were going to play, you couldn't play this game. And I think that works with the speed of it, because I think part of this game is it passes quickly, the time, but it's all really engaging and fun. There's no downtime.
So that's good.
Yeah, because your action, you got 4 birds. You're going to put 1 bird out every round, and that's all you're doing. But you are watching that, no pun intended. You're watching that board like a hawk, hoping they don't go to that location and leaves it open for you, or they don't spot that opportunity that you've spotted where they can pick up some easy points. Played over 5 rounds, the game whistles by, and I think I think you've tapped your nail on the head there, Sid. It's really engaging, and there's no downtime in it. Every moment you're focused on that game.
But it kind of, it's very easy to slip up as well, which I think which is great. And you don't always realise you slipped up, because you'll forget that, because the spaces all activate in an order.
Yeah.
So what you do can change the rest of the board as you're scoring through it.
Yeah, you always go top
really
to bottom,
clever.
left to right. So, you want to go, this one will allow me to manipulate that tile over there, and that tile will allow me to do this and get that fox, and then the fox can activate and do Yeah.
It's clever. It's a really clever little game.
I'm terrible at it. I don't know what it was about the game. I just couldn't get it to work. My brain didn't work or what, but I tried.
Yeah.
Couldn't. I was awful. Could never got any of the animals, because every time I tried to get an animal, someone beat me to it. You've got the little nests. Every time I thought I was there, then someone pulls a bloody nest out and screws either me up or screws someone else up.
Rory's looking quite smart at that comment.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Rory's quite good at this game.
Rory was. Rory could see for the Matrix on this game.
I quite like this game, and I always find it's a really interesting. I think Steve mentioned it when we're playing. When you put your hand in your bag and you pull out, and when you pull out your own coloured birds, so you've got 4 of the same colour in front of you. Those are actually, you might think originally that that's quite powerful, but it's actually probably the most boring turn you'll have all game. You want to have other players' birds because you want to be able to change what they're doing. And the order, and when you put them down, I'm going to save Sid's one until last because I need to know what he's going to do with my one before I put this one down. There's a lot of kind of above the table kind of psychology of bluffing and trying to work out what other people are doing with this game. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It looks fantastic. I think it's a really pretty game as well. Really high components.
Yeah, very tactile. Really, I love it. I think it's an excellent game. And Steve is wrong.
Well,
He's shit at it.
I didn't say it was a bad game. I said I'm bad at it.
To be fair, that is
Completely different. Yeah, the way the birds stack is pretty cool. They do actually stack on top of each other. Although the hole and the base which you stack, to me, was not in the place where I thought it was, and I couldn't get them to stack. I failed in 2 ways at this game, both playing it and the physical process of actually stacking the birds. Weirdly, it kind of reminded me a smidge of Smash Up.
Smash Up?
Smash Up is a base bursting game in which what you do is you play cards to several bases until you get enough points so it scores, but and then there's a rank first, second and third of what the scores are. And sometimes it's not always a case that the first person gets the most points. Sometimes it's the second person. And it reminded me of that with that whole thing of certain locations scoring different points and you trying to manipulate the board.
I forgot that Smash Up had that.
Obviously a very different game because Smash Up was actually more about the card play, but the birds, what you do with the birds. As I said, I can't comment on what the creatures did because I never managed to grab one to do anything with anyway. And I found the fountain even more frustrating because getting your birds on the fountain scored you points, but you wanted them to go there later in the game, but not too late that they ended up in the puddle at the bottom. And so basically all I did was help other people by allowing them to get further up the fountain.
It's very magnanimous of you, Steve.
Very generous. Very generous.
Very generous.
Now, this is Perch from Inside Up Games, and I think it's another belting game from them for me. A lot lighter than their other games, but absolutely really good fun. And if you can play it with a bunch of mates that are all dickheads just like you will have a riot at the table.
Yeah.
The good type of riot, not an angry mob.
Nice. Well, go on.
No, I was going to say, speaking of angry mobs, but this is quite the opposite, isn't it?
Yes. Well, from birdsong, which is generally quite happy, to very depressing music.
Is it depressing?
And we're talking Fado. The House of Fado. Yes, Fado is a traditional Portuguese style of music, which is generally quite miserable and depressing, or at least melancholy and emotional. And this is House of Fado. by Eagle Griffin Games and designed by Vissal Lacerda.
And Juan Martinez, I believe.
Juan Martinez, yes. And this is the third in a series of kind of mini Lacerdas, as I've affectionately come to know them. The first one was Mercado de Lisboa. The second was Bot Factory. And this is the third, House of Fado. And they are all kind of miniature versions of the main versions of Lacerda's game. So Bot Factory is kind of like a miniature version or a simplified, more streamlined version of Kanban. Mercado de Lisboa is rather obviously a shortened, slimline version of Lisboa. And House of Fado is a sort of mini Gallerist. The reason for all of this is that the core mechanic of each of those major games has been kind of ported to these smaller games, but the surrounding game is a lot less complicated than their sort of bigger siblings. House of Fado is, you are essentially a restaurant owner, and you are attracting Fado musicians. So you've got a traditional Portuguese guitarist, a classical guitarist, and a singer. And in your little restaurant, you're trying to attract customers who will then appreciate the band, and then they will make the band more famous. The band will then become more valuable, and ultimately they'll become mega famous. And this is sort of paralleled in the Gallerist, where you commission artists who get better, you can promote them, and then their art is worth more. And ultimately, when you sell their art, you get more money. So you can kind of see instantly the parallel in one sense, but the other sense is the mechanic by which the game actually operates on your turn. It's basically a worker placement, but when you put your worker down, if there is somebody else already in that spot, they get essentially pushed out onto a slightly lesser action, and they kind of get a sort of a bonus action on at that point. So if I pushed Steve out, for example, he might get the choice of gaining some money, or like purchasing, another part of the board, or getting an additional action from part of the board, but at a cost, or something like that. So ultimately, that's essentially it. There's only about 7 places you can actually play on the board, 3 of which are duplicated, in essence. So the game itself is mechanically fairly straightforward, unlike the Gallerist, which has a lot of brain burning going on. But ultimately, you buy musicians, you put them in your bar, you make them famous, you kick them out for some victory points, or you promote them, which gets you a kind of an area control or an area majority sort of mechanic that's worked into the game. And ultimately, the idea is you're supposed to get a few stars, for it is always stars. And and once three of the 5 stars on the board have been taken, the game then ends. And it's about an hour and a half, I would say, at a sort of a higher player count. Yeah. It's a lot shorter and quicker and easier than the Gallerist. And I'm not going to lie, I quite like it. I have played it at 4, 3, and 2 players, and it is definitely better at the higher player count, because you get a lot more interaction from all of the kickouts. Yeah. And there's always something to do. And it's one of the, we've just touched on it now, that Sid's just mentioned, that you have to pay attention, because on somebody else's turn, you might end up having to do something. So you're always engaged, which is to the game's advantage. You're not that sat there waiting for 5 minutes while everyone else has their turn. You're always paying attention. There's usually something to do on somebody else's turn. You'll get a benefit, and it can fuel your strategy as well, because quite often you might get kicked out, and you might get the option to buy a musical note that will help you fill a score that you can then score. It's quite confusing. You fill a musical score to score. But anyway, it took me a few rereads of the rulebook to understand. To score, oh, I see. Or you can, maybe attract another customer to your bar, which can get you money for selling meals, or get you fame for the musicians. So I think it all works quite nicely together.
I agree.
Excellent, correct answer, Mr. Tudor.
Moving on. I have one complaint. That no one else knew anything about music. So I was saying, can you pass me the quaver?
The quaver or the triplet. Yeah, I did that, and my dad's like, what are you talking about?
Pass me a quaver. We've got some skips.
Yes, I'm going to pay a quid for a quaver. Yes. Crotchet, quaver, triplet, and clef. What's a clef? Oh, that funny squiggle. Oh, right, okay.
So we played it 4-player. I would say that this wasn't our game, this was someone else's. And although the person Ian, who taught us, did a sterling job. He didn't read the full sentence of the most important rule. And I am going to shout out Ian on the podcast because it was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
Because
he read half a sentence. Golden rule. And he read the beginning of it.
It's more of a silver
but not
rule.
the second half. Yeah. Which means we'd all done maybe a couple more actions than maybe we should have been allowed to, but it's fine.
What did you get wrong?
Core of the game. It was about where you can place your workers.
Oh yeah, you're not allowed to go anywhere that you already have a worker or have a worker in a kicked out spot. Yes. That does really restricts you. That actually,
it does.
Yeah, we brought it in about halfway through the game and suddenly went, "Wow, this game's actually much harder than we thought."
It is. Yes, it is.
It's really hard when you play by the rules.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because you get 3 workers, and the first 3 turns of your game, you have to put all 3 workers out. You can't just move one of them around. But once they're all out, then you then start moving them around, which does make it quite crowded, especially at a 4-player game. So you can imagine the amount of interaction you get on 7 worker spots, and 2 of those worker spots you ain't going anywhere near at the start of the game because you're not allowed to. So you're really down to 5 worker spots, which makes it even more restrictive. It's really clever, but it works really well. And oddly, I actually found at 2-player, we got in each other's way a lot more.
You have the assistants, don't you?
No, they're optional. But yes, there is a small sort of mini expansion for the 2-player game where you have assistants, which is again like the Gallerist. You can use that rule, yes, Rory. But I found that it's more like a race in 2-player. But the thing is, in the 2-player game, you're kind of doing the same thing. So it goes in waves. So I was playing a bunch of actions, and then Alora started doing the same actions as me. So she was bumping me a lot. And then about halfway through the game, it reversed. So I ended up starting to bump her quite a lot. She was getting in my way. But in a 4-player game, the bumping's a lot more distributed.
Yes.
I would say much to my hilarity, the game does end very quickly, especially if someone gets that 3rd star and the last play in the round.
Yes, it's like, right, game over.
That was
it really
my
does
issue
piss
with
off
this game.
Rory.
Yeah, nice.
Do you know? I didn't. It wasn't like a Slay the Spire. I didn't get pissed off. What happened with this is, I just felt a little bit deflated. I just felt a little bit disappointed by it because, and I think part of it is my unfamiliarity with the game. It was only my first play. That the game came up, the end came about very, very quickly, and I had 1 turn, and then Steve picked up a star, and then Ian picked up a star. I had another turn, and Dave picked up a star, and then, that's the end of the game.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I just didn't see it coming. And I think for me, the kind of the trajectory of the game, I don't know when. Steve and I had this discussion post game. I'm not trying to sure when did the middle of the game occur? Almost like narratively, mechanically. When did the middle of the game occur? It just felt like we were all building our engine, and then it ended.
Yeah, that's your first playthrough. Did you find? Because I've played it now 5 or 6 times, and did you find in the playthrough, because it was your first playthrough, did you find you didn't promote your musicians very often or very much?
So when you say promote them,
you know, the 3 spots in the middle
number
with the area control bit.
Yeah.
So what happened, and we all commented on this, is none of them went. The first one that went in there was a 3er on all 3 spots, which made it then more difficult because we did, rather than people going like 1, 2, maybe jump 1, it went 3, 5, and so not much promotion happened because everyone was playing catch up with everyone else.
Yeah, what you can do, and you might have missed this because Laura certainly did, is that you can still buy those musicians, which clears up space, and you can put somebody else out. Yeah,
but money is also quite a tight resource.
It is. It is until later in the game when you've got the 4th spot out when you're at your restaurant.
Where is the middle of the game? Because you've got the beginning where everybody's in the same boat, and then you've got that bit where everybody's doing well, and then the game ends.
See, I think the middle of the game really is probably when you start promoting musicians, because that's when you've got people going through your restaurant, because you must have closed it at least once to get the money and to have gone through the promotion side of things.
Them up, yeah.
And when musicians start going out, that's when, because that then opens those spots on the board. So the full board is kind of available to you. So that's probably the middle of the game. And that does take a few, at least 1, possibly 2 repetitions of you going through your restaurant in order to get to that point, I'd say.
Yeah. Now,
okay,
I enjoyed the game. I just, my disappointment, I think, is my first experience. And I think my second game, and I do really want to play another game of this, my second game is going to be far richer because I'll know more and I'll be able to predict, that sudden ending. It won't be quite so sudden to me. It won't come as such a surprise, or it won't come as such a shock.
Sure. I don't know. It's still pretty sharp, even though you've played it a lot, because you don't necessarily know exactly what someone's doing, because there's a couple of ways you can get, say, someone to like maximum fame. You can either buy their fame, or you can just, get them famous for, getting lots of applause. There's a couple of ways of doing it. So it varies, because as soon as somebody does, obviously that's worth a star, and it's still sudden. But yeah, I take your point. At least if once somebody gets their first star, you're like, right, I need to wind this shit up.
It's like Scythe in that regard, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Once 2 or 3 stars start coming from Scythe, you're like, hang on, this game's going pretty damn quick. I need to get a shift on.
You're right.
Yeah.
And you suddenly realise there is no way in hell I can catch up.
Yeah, and I think that was for me. I just was not prepared for us to be in the end game when we were. So it was like, well, how do I catch up? I was like, I can't. I'm not ready for this at all. I'm just nowhere near ready for this to claw back 1 star.
I think as well, we were expecting maybe like another round once the end game had been triggered, but it was one of those games that just
ends the round.
Once the end game had been triggered, ends the round, and that's it.
Laura said the same thing. She was expecting like another round just so you can kind of wrap your game up properly. At least it gives you the chance to do something. But no, it does end very sharply. But no, I quite liked it. It was good. I mean, obviously, having played the Gallerist, I'm quite familiar with the beats of the game. But I still think it's quite a nice. It's a nice weight. It's not particularly complicated. It's crunchy, and there's a lot of interaction. So I think it ticks all the boxes, really.
Yeah, I agree with you all round there. It's good.
No, I thought it was a really good game. I really liked it. Helped that I won.
Yes, nice. I think I'll have to get you to play Bot Factory, actually, because you haven't played that. Because you've played Kanban. I think you'll probably enjoy Bot Factory as well. Similar main mechanic in that Sandra's still running around and you have to explain yourself to her, but it's a lot simpler than Kanban.
Well then, folks, I think that's us for today. So thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice, and share and interact with us on the old socials, because that does the algorithm, feeds the algorithm. It needs feeding.
Feed the beast.
Speaking of which, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Board Game Geek Guild 2726. Until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.